I'm going to call the meeting to order, please. So this is the board meeting for December the 5th, 2023. And welcome everyone. Welcome our trustees who are virtually joining us as well. And perhaps our student trustees will be back in a little bit. I will start the meeting off with the territorial acknowledgement, and then I will ask Trustee Kaiser to do the invocation. We acknowledge that the land on which our school and district buildings are situated is the traditional, unceded, and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin people. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples on the land on which we gather here today. Trustee Kaiser, could I ask you to do the invocation for us?
Thank you. May we who are assembled here have a true understanding of the duties that are placed in our hands. We seek to have the wisdom to honor our obligations to the good of the residents of Renfrew County, to the parents, teachers, electors, and especially the students. May those who teach be ever inspired by goodness, and may the wisdom and knowledge which they impart to our students ever serve as a beacon to lighten their way. As trustees and administrators, we will work together with integrity, perseverance, and respect to the fulfillment of the trust bestowed upon us.
Thank you, Trustee Kaiser. I'm going to start with a roll call. Vice Chair Boland.
Here.
Trustee Dobson.
Here.
Trustee Doherty.
Here.
Trustee Gannett.
Here.
Chair Humphreys, I'm here. Trustee Kaiser.
Here.
Trustee Primo.
Here.
Trustee Reddy.
Here.
Student Trustee Beggs. Student Trustee Ding. They were here briefly. They may be back with us. I know they were both joining virtually. See, on staff side, Director Kelly. Here. Superintendent Poirier. Here. Superintendent Barnes. Here. Superintendent Kuzno.
Here.
Superintendent Smith. Here. Superintendent Riddell. Here. Excellent. Thank you very much. Regrets from Executive Officer Catherine Jemison, who I believe is in Japan at the moment. So looking forward to hearing all about that when she gets back. I would like to have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting, please. Trustee Boland, thank you. A seconder, Trustee Dobson, all in favor of today's agenda? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest with today's board agenda? Seeing none. I need a motion to confirm the minutes of the November 27th, 2023 board meeting, and we'll burn a seconder, please. Trustee Gannett, thank you. A seconder. Trustee Kaiser, thank you very much. All in favor of supporting and passing the minutes from November 27th. And that's carried as well. Thank you. All right, on to our presentation today, and it's very exciting to have our director's annual report coming to the board. And I will ask our interim director of education, Aaron Kelly, to do that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I will in just 1 second because you'll want to see it.
We do.
We'll do a little walkthrough of the book.
A little show and tell.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Thanks. Great, thank you. Oh, yeah, I'll convert it. So it's my pleasure to present the 2022-23 Director's Annual Report. And I think this report reflects the tremendous work done by all staff, by the senior team who sits around here and does an outstanding job. This is also a reflection of the work of Director of Education, Dr. Pino Buffoni, who is not here. And thank you to the leadership and support from the Board of Trustees. So thank you all who contributed, because I know almost everyone around the table here contributed. And to Hannah and Connor and to Meredith, who did a great deal of work, and Shell, who did a lot of editing for us and made this look excellent. So if you just want to open the page, you notice new graphics. Connor has done an excellent job on that work.
Is that marijuana plant on the front?
Yeah, that's our new symbol.
Is it calming effect?
Yeah. There is calmness to this whole thing, isn't it? But if you, it's been organized under sort of the key values and tenets of the organization, and it highlights many of the things that are important to the organization. So the first of you see on page 2, we do a little multi-class technique through the book. We are focusing on the community engagement and partnerships. And we're really grateful to the advisory roles played by our Indigenous Education Advisory Committee, SEAC, PIC, and Student Senate. All of those are highlighted here. You'll see some of the activities that have happened during the year highlighted there. On page 3, for example, you'll see information about the CNL laboratories and connections of government relations, as noted on the government relations section, and other partnerships included on the next page, I think, is the childcare, the new childcare, and further to that, our community use of schools. I think you'll see some good stats there in terms of the number of visits to the schools, permits, hours of community use, and the number of community partners that are used. So we've provided a fair bit of data there for you to have a look at. Quickly moving to page 5, which we focus on the equity and well-being. That's a pillar of the work of the board, obviously. And the name of seeking out best services and best practices that support mental health and well-being. On equity and inclusion and diversity, our commitments there are also noted. And you'll see some demographic data on page 6. Again, there's lots to look at there. And you will also see some of the work in the Lead with Care project, also noted on page 7. I know this is a fast go through, but here we go. On page 8, you will note the excellence in teaching and learning focus. Here there's a write-up about the grades 7 to 12 Chromebook deployment. And on page 9, we talk about the universal design for learning, which has been a focus. Also noted in this section is innovation in mathematics, the early reading strategy, and the links coding project. So there's lots of information there and highlighting some of the initiatives of the year. Now we're moving on to page 13. I'm sure you've got that all read by now. On page 13, we look to the cooperative education and skilled trades, and you'll see celebrations there. Of note, I thought was interesting, that the Renfrew County District School Board had the highest number to date of OEAP participants signed up as registered apprentices. So I think that's something to be really proud of, because that's not really easily done. And I know a lot of districts really struggle with finding apprenticeships. So moving on then, dual credit and high skills major, for example, are focused there, the career and trade events, which are some fantastic events for students and unique learning opportunities for our youth. And of special mention, I think, is on page 16, where you'll see, as a result of the work already done in Techsploration, Renfrew County District School Board is the only school district board in Ontario that will run the entire exploration program, which is excellent. And the other big theme of the Director's Annual Report is the stewardship of resources. And as we know, that remains a commitment to the board. And last year's work has begun to reimagine the secondary school experience, as noted. And there's lots of good information there on page 17, 18, and 19. And this work was also supported, as you'll note on page 19, about a number of resources to assist with that Rethink Secondary. Of course, number of other things are noted there. There's an internal corporate services review as well as an employment services review that's noted. And then on page 21, you'll see some smiling faces there to celebrate the Employee Recognition Award, and the winners are there on page 21. Of course, measuring progress is always an important part of the work, and that is noted on pages 22, 23, and 24, which focuses on our EQAO data. And on the final page of the Director's Annual Report, you'll see a number of smiling faces and students and who the work is actually for. So this is an opportunity to celebrate the many inspirational and innovative experiences and opportunities available to our students. And I would just like to thank everyone who's put effort into making sure that they're dedicated to our students. Thank you to the hardworking and caring professionals who make the organization what it is. That's a very quick review of the Director's Annual Report. And I'd like to thank everybody for their work. And I know that the senior team would be happy to answer any questions they can have.
Thank you very much. Very, very nice looking report. Certainly, it's an easy read. We have to go back and read it a little slower.
Yes,
than each
yes.
But lots of great data for sure. Does anybody have any questions for anybody? Yes, trustee Primo.
I do have one question, and I agree that the report looks beautiful. Maybe it's just my own ignorance. And are we the only ones who received this report?
No, the report will go to, we'll be sending it out digitally to the entire staff. I think that was our decision to send it out to everybody. And I think it would go to some community groups. I would look to Hannah because she's more of an expert on this than I am, but we will.
We have all the DARS available on our website, which we always will, and Connor will update that after board today, so today or tomorrow. And then we also put it on our social media account so people can link directly to the report and have a look at it as well.
It's a good opportunity to celebrate the board, so.
Yes. I guess my only concern is it just seems like there's a lot of money that went into the presentation of this, and I'm just a bit fiscally conservative, I guess, and so my only concern is that maybe this isn't while the information in it was well presented, it seems to me that maybe this is a little more than what's needed for this kind of a report.
Yeah, there are only certain people who are getting the hard copy of this report. So there are not many hard copies of the report. Most of that is digital. So I don't know how many copies we're running.
We only got like 30 hard copies.
Yes. So this is
Yeah.
really for
It's all
your
digital.
reports and for senior staff or whatever, but there's not, most of it will be digitally distributed.
And in terms of the cost, like we did that in-house, so our comms team did that. It wasn't outsourced or anything like that. Yeah.
Super. Any other questions? I am intrigued because I had missed somewhere along the line. I had missed the discussion or learning or hearing much about the Texploration program. So can somebody tell me a little bit more about that, or maybe I missed that meeting? I'm not sure, but anyway, I'd like to hear more.
Yeah, I did not include that part because I included a lot or just of the SHISM OGAP and such. So with, sorry, I'm just wondering who included.
Yes, so, yes, thank you. I was just wondering if we know, a little, if you can tell us, just
So
anybody can tell us a bit more about it.
yeah, so it was like a pilot project for STEM connections, and we're also working this year to connect with Ottawa U and Carleton for STEM opportunities, but it was a focus on really looking at fields of, well, science and engineering and the like, and engagement of students, particularly female students at a younger age, but mostly for grade 9. So it was kind of just a short window. Again, it wasn't presented at board or anything because it was just a pilot to get sorry, and I apologize. It's just like I don't recall it, including that, but that's basically the premise of it. But in hopes, like there was just Jill of the Trades at the end of October.
Yes.
That took place, and more opportunities looking at where there's a need, and there's a need particularly for females in engineering.
So the funding, where would the funding have come from? Do you know?
So from the ministry, we
Okay.
get a lot of different parceled packages of where to spend, and that's a pretty significant portfolio for tech and the like.
Perfect. It's very exciting.
Can I just add on that, Susan, like a number of years ago, so Texploration was something that was from the East Coast. And then they had reached out to try and see if they could expand it to Ontario. So we did have at one point when I was doing Christian's portfolio, we did have a small pilot happening.
Okay.
And then this time, after COVID, I think they've kind of come back at it again. And so through Alex Harris, he's been able to do that. But some of the funding will actually be through that company as well. It's not like a big expense piece. They're trying to be advocates and supports for women in trade. So when you read more about it, it's kind of like they do a conference and then they do some things in class too with women, young women.
Perfect. It's great. It's great to take those opportunities at different units, right? It's nice we can do that. Yes, trustee Ganassi.
Wanted to make a comment of all the highlights in here. I just want to pick one out that's near and dear to my heart, and I want to use this quote. And I believe our the director might have said this also, but ARCDSB had the highest number to date of OEAP participants signed as registered apprentices. That is no small feat. I think that for the size of our board, I think we've got some really critical people that are doing an awesome job on that file. There's still a lot to be done, but I just wanted to highlight that. It's one of the highlights of the highlights for me. I think we've got an excellent group in place, and they're really working hard to do what's stated here. And anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Any other questions or comments about the director's annual report? I would just like to make a couple of quick comments. As you know, Interim Director Kelly, this will be your last board meeting actually with us. And the time just has kind of slipped away, and I do want to, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, thank you very much for your leadership during the last 4.5 months, whatever it has been. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you and to also have you bring your experiences and your ideas and comments and suggestions, hopefully as well, to our board. And we really appreciated that very, very much. And thank you for moving across the province.
Yes.
I appreciate that. And I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
I have certainly enjoyed being in Renfrew County, and thank you very much to an excellent senior team who've been very supportive, and to the Board of Trustees who are always been gracious and very helpful. So I am thrilled to have been here and to learn from everybody here. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Okay, on to the committee reports to the board, and I believe we only have one today. The Committee of the Whole open and closed session reports from earlier today, December the 5th. So I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Bowen.
Thank you. We'll do the open session report for December 5th, 2023. The Committee of the Whole of Renfrew County District School Board met on December 5th, 2023 and discussed the following items in open session: international students and host opportunities, Indigenous Education Annual Action Plan, school year calendar for 2023-2024 PAD change, Board Policy 19, Fraud Management revised, and trustee vacancy. The following recommendations were made: school year calendar 2023-2024 PAD change, that the Renfrew County District School Board approve an amendment to the school year calendar for the 2023-24 school year in order to change the professional activity PAD scheduled for April 26, 2024 to April 8th, 2024. And board policy number 19, fraud management revised, that the Renfrew County District School Board of Trustees adopt policy 19, fraud management as presented. And the last recommendation was trustee vacancy, that the RCDSB invite interested persons to apply and be interviewed for the position of trustee representing the municipality of Petawawa. I move that the board adopts this report.
Thank you, Trustee Bowen. So we have a motion to adopt this report. Do I have a seconder to adopt this report, please? Trustee Dobson, thank you very much. Any discussion on the report? It's as we recalled it an hour and a bit ago, I guess. All those in favor of adopting this report? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And welcome to our student trustees. I see you were able to join us. Thank you. It's nice to see you up there. And we have another report for the closed session report, I believe.
The Committee of the Whole of Renfrew County District School Board met on December 5th, 2023 and discussed the following items in closed session: financial information, i.e. external auditor, and prospective litigation. A motion was adopted in closed session on item 2.1, financial information, external auditor. I move that the board adopts this report.
Thank you very much, Trustee Bowen. And do I have a seconder to adopt this through the closed session report? Trustee Gannett, thank you very much. All those in favor of adopting the closed session report? And that is carried. I do recognize that I omitted a motion to receive the director's annual report. I do need to have that on the books as well. So could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the 2022-2023 director's annual report? Trustee Kaiser, thank you very much. And seconder, Trustee Gwinnett, thank you very much. Any questions or comments? I think we've had a good review of it. All those in favor of receiving the director's annual report? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, the updates, we didn't do a director or a chairs update, did we? So we're good there.
We did that last
We did it last week. Nothing new since last week. Student trustees, I don't know if either student trustee Biggs or Ding, did you have anything you wanted to add? I know you didn't put anything in, but I didn't know if you wanted to give us any kind of an update on what you've been up to.
No, I don't think so. Neither of us have had very much in the past week either.
Fair enough, fair enough. Thank you for that. I just didn't want to, I just wanted to make sure you had the opportunity. And I don't think from an OPSPA perspective, trustee Doherty, we didn't have anything additional from the OPSPA report either, did we?
No, not that, I don't have anything extra.
I think the summary came out this week sometime. And I'm not sure if it was sent directly to trustees or if it was just sent to the board of directors. So we'll double check that. And if it hasn't gone out to everybody, we will forward it on for your reading pleasure. I don't believe we have any correspondence. Is there any other business that we have omitted? This must be the shortest board meeting in history. I did want to especially thank Shelley for her lovely decorations of the boardroom
Yes.
today. Certainly gives us a nice festive feel, and also for the lovely punch that she made. And of course, to thank trustee Boland for his always delicious cake. It's a family recipe, right?
Yes.
Favorite family recipe.
Yes.
So thank you so much for sharing that with us as well. And with that, I do want to wish everybody a happy holiday break. It's hard to believe that the holiday season is shortly upon us, and hopefully you're getting ready for that. And with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Trustee Boland, do I have a seconder for adjournment? Trustee Dobson, I can tell would like to do that. All those in favor? And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
So this is just a very brief presentation on international education, but it's on international exchanges. It's not the excursions. In the new year, because there have been some challenges to that, and certainly we're very receptive to the need for greater equity and fundraising models for schools. We thought, though, it would be best to present once the trips have come back and can share more in terms of student voice, in terms of those of whom applied for the scholarships from EF, and certainly what schools did to kind of mitigate costs for students to join. So this is just a quick overview on the international exchanges that we have in the board. Yeah, I am going to turn it over. I'm going to go down the slides because our student today, Kostya, who was with us. Are you there, Kostya?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, and thank you for being so patient. But Kostya was one of the students who went on the France exchange last year. So as you recall, we had several families who said that they would host students from Clermont-Ferrand for 6 weeks, and students came in the spring. And then Kostya and a couple of other students got to go to France in the fall. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Kostya, for a few moments just to talk about your experience, not only going to France, but also hosting a student here.
Okay. When Jero came here, that was my exchange student. His name's Jero. So he came here in, I believe, late April and stayed all throughout May. And he went along with the students here just like great. He got along really well with them. He made lots of friends. And I think he had a great experience over here. Overall, we took him on lots of field trips, especially with the school here. We went to Shaw Woods. I think we went to Algonquin Park. We also had a couple of parties during that time, and they were all just really fun. He was a great guy. And so, yeah, that was really fun. And so I went there to France in October and September. So I left on September 22nd. The flights there and back were great. No problems. The hosting family was also really great. They were really nice. So that was great. um, so we went to Paris. I mean, of course, I went to school there. School there was pretty good. Yeah. So some of the people there are really great. They're all really nice. So that's really good. I made lots of friends pretty easily, and so did the other students that came with me. So that was great. We didn't really do anything in particular together. Most of us just kind of went on our own things with the host families. So like we all went to Vichy, but not at the same time. Like I think I went in the first week and the other two went in the second week. So that was different. We also went to Paris, as you can see here. We saw the Arc de Triomphe and the Louvre. And we also went to the ocean, their summer home on the ocean. So that was great. So really just the whole experience overall was amazing experience. I would definitely recommend doing it for anyone who's planning to do it in my school.
And Katya, can you talk a little bit about being your French proficiency and your engagement in French communication when you were there?
Yeah, it's definitely improved a lot. Like when I got there, I wasn't able to understand like very much at all that the French were saying, mainly because they have a different accent opposed to the Quebecois accent. So it was hard to get used to. But after lots of time, like it went great. My French improved a ton, and like I even started learning some of their slang. So that went great. And my teacher noticed that my French is great, especially my speaking skills.
And any highlights from French culture that you want to share?
I'd say mainly their food is the most the big highlight. I didn't try escargot, which is the big one, but yeah, they eat a lot of bread there and not a lot of meat. The meat that they eat there is mostly either beef or lots of seafood. Like we had oysters, mussels, and a lot of fish. They also like vegetables, so not really that much meat, but except for seafood.
Okay, well, I appreciate you taking the time, Kostya, and he is from Opiongo School, so very much appreciate it. We know you're catching a bus, and certainly I'll share some of the quotations that you and Holly forwarded to me.
All right.
Okay? All right.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Here.
Okay, so I'm jumping around a little bit. So going back, okay, so I'm just going to switch gears for a moment and I'll talk about the exchange that we're planning for next year and just the relationship we have with Clermont-Ferrand. But this is for Yes Canada. So this is international students who come to us, and it is something that very much in Ontario, the ministry is engaged certainly with Yes Canada. So it just gives you a breakdown. This year we have 35 students who are here with us. It tells you their home country and how many students are here from each of the countries. So it just gives a breakdown there of the students. I was surprised this year that Australia was the most. Last year it was mostly students from kind of Eastern Europe who were attending, but certainly this year there's a bit more diversity there. I was very happy to see that we have 7 students from Japan and even 2 students from New Zealand. That's quite a ways, as everyone knows. So they are here with us this year. This slide gives a breakdown just of how many students are at each of the schools. So the only school that isn't represented here is Madawaska District High School. However, I will put a plug for them. They do have a student teacher this year from the university. So that's great, but that's something certainly that we will work with later for students there. One of the host families initially who was going to partake though in the exchanges was going to be placed at Madawaska, but had to drop out at the last minute, so we couldn't do that, but certainly we'll continue to foster the relationship with that school. So as you can see, it's pretty well distributed with the exception of Mackenzie with the Deep River schools, but again, that's something that we can work on. So this gives just a quick overview of the cost. So there is money that is acquired by the district when international students come. And depending on their stay here, it can increase, certainly if they're here for a year. We actually have had 3 students of whom have come back and are going to graduate from our district. So they pay a different fee. It's not through Yes Canada, though. It's through a different agency with whom we work with. And, I like that they wanted to graduate here, and I'm assuming they'll want to pursue a university or college here. But there are costs for certainly, last year, there was a lot of advertising, there was radio advertising, there was stuff on our digital boards and a lot of information home. We do give the students kind of a care package from the RCDSB with t-shirts, hats and the like. There are trips to Ottawa and various other field trips that occur. We do try and a lot happens with the international students in their respective high school, but then we also do some board initiatives with them, like to Shaw Woods, but also to Ottawa, and kind of ask what they want to do, and certainly the schools will advocate as well. So that's an overview. Some of that money has not come in yet, as we have some students who are coming in February. So these are just some quick quotations. I did try to get I did try to ask some students to come, of our international students, and present, but they're a little bit apprehensive. Just the English, their English does become a bit more fluent, but certainly it's broken. And then a number of them were leaving because holidays are happening soon. But just, a number of them really, really enjoyed it, and certainly engaged in a lot of sports. So a lot of the international students will partake on our school sports team and the like. A highlight from Australia was seeing the first snowfall, because they had never seen snow before. And the schools really engage the students, certainly through Link Crew, through student council. They go to certainly movie nights or school dances and the like. And overall, I'm in Arnprior quite a bit, so I see the students from Arnprior, but they're very much engaged in school life. And just some more in terms of what they enjoy. And I want to go to Australia because it's 30 degrees now. So yeah. So again, I did present this last year for the International Exchange. It is a 6-week partnership with Clermont-Ferrand. What was somewhat problematic is we asked our students from Renfrew County when would be a best time of year. So last year the students came in the spring. Next year they want them coming in the winter. They're like, we'd love to have them here in the valley when, they can do things that they don't necessarily get to see with snow, like skating, taking them downhill skiing, and just a lot of the festivities that happen throughout the county. So next year we're looking, it's actually next year, but we're looking at 2025 and are establishing that partnership for the students from France to come here in early February. And that would be good for our students in terms of being at the start of the semester. And then our students to go there to France, which is a nice time, in April for the upcoming year. And that is something that we talked about with the host families in France, and they thought that would be a really great time of year as well. Our students who went to France this year, they went, as Costia mentioned, September and October. So they did get to partake in the 2-week vacation time in France. They spent 4 weeks in school, 2 weeks of vacation, but just all around thought that winter here, spring there would be a better time. So these are some of the students at Opiongo High School, and certainly they were a great support. With the international exchanges, so a lot is covered. Basically, a lot is covered except for amenities that the students will have there. One kind of disadvantage, though, with our students who went to France is there isn't the same engagement of teachers that our teachers gave to the kids here. So that's something I work with a gentleman called Dominique, and we are working with him. He said just the teachers there aren't as engaged in the day-to-day student life as ours are here. So that was a big takeaway for the students here. But working on a different partnership with him there. So it's something that he and I have discussed quite often, of greater engagement of teachers there. I talk a lot about French, if there's exchanges that could happen or a partnership. So we are going to launch in the new year and ask teachers here if we could engage in a partnership online and having almost like a French teacher pen pal there with someone here and sharing classes. That's very doable. There's a 6-hour difference, but nonetheless, we can make it happen in that regard. And even more exciting, but we're working on the details of doing a principal, like taking a group of principals there and a group of their principals coming here and looking at school operations and the like. Dominique was very interested in kind of the way that principals function here versus there. So wanted to have that dialogue, and it's something that he and I are working on here. And there's a lot more to come of that, but certainly those exchange opportunities, definitely the virtual is viable, but looking at, bringing people in person. And before my time, Superintendent Block was able to go there with a couple of people and certainly look at the school there. That's just the kids coming. And this is the school. There are 4 schools in the Clermont-Ferrand district that the exchange usually can take place. All of our students this time were at this school, but there are 4 other schools that students can attend. We just wanted to keep, because there were only 3 together. That was just Costa before he could attend. This was his experience there, but he had a really great time. And then just an overview in terms of what we're doing. We did partner with OCVSB because they have a partnership with Aix-Marseille, and then we with Clermont-Ferrand, but I spoke to the superintendent there, and we want to look at kind of a partnership between both districts that we could share and go, and certainly that partnership with the French exchange for teachers. The one in particular for our board, though, is just that we will look at, they wanted late January, but I said no, it'd have to be early February, just in terms of exams, and then going late April and May for 2025. And I think originally we had 6 students who wanted to go last time, and it was only 3, but I think part of that was just COVID, a bit of a COVID hangover still. So I feel that there will be more students next time that want to go. And sorry, Sharon and I will start advertising that late spring. So this was just a quick, because everyone had it last year, but this was just the exchanges. Excursions will happen in springtime, and we'll talk about a lot of the equity and certainly the fundraising and such.
Thank you. Any questions for Kristen?
It's a little late, maybe. I was hoping to ask the student. I realized you
Sure.
you mentioned a little bit about the difference between teachers in the classroom, but I was interested to know what he felt, if there was one thing that was different being in a classroom at that school versus being a classroom here. I would like to know what his comment would be. Do you have any clue?
I do.
Or you do? Okay.
That's a great question. That's something that actually there was a lot of work because teachers here had to support the learning there. They also had to be a bit lenient for assignments and the like, because the students, when they're there, they are attending the schedule that that their student would have there while still keeping up here. So the biggest factor there, and there just wasn't the same engagement. Basically, you're sitting there, the lessons being taught. There isn't a lot of back and forth with the students and the teacher. I would say it's just a different support in terms of the learning environment there, but it's very much the curriculum is covered there versus, being differentiated and supporting individual student needs. It's very much covering of the curriculum. So for our students who went, the main focus was the proficiency of French language. And then at home, they would experience the French culture. But and that's something I'm working with Dominique, who oversees it there. And that's why he wants to enhance the partnership, because he feels certainly there's a lot we can learn, but more so there's a lot that teachers can learn in terms of really the wraparound of we really try our best to engage and support the whole student. Whereas there, it's very much just teacher is on the stage, not the sage.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Just a quick one. So we had 35 students in the international exchange this year.
No, students who come.
Who come? Okay.
Yeah, international students who
Right,
come
yeah,
here.
students.
Yes, yeah.
So how does that compare to last year?
Last year we had 34.
Okay.
So it's about the same. It's about the same, yeah.
So do you expect that will sort of be the norm, what we can handle? Because I know part of it is host families, right, too?
Part of it is host families, and that's actually been really good because it's a lot, right, to host a student and to ensure that everything is in place. I can see now, and I don't want to use COVID, but just momentum happening since COVID, and a bit more ease with having students, and certainly flights and things are kind of getting back to a pre-COVID normal than they were. So I can see that that increasing.
It might increase, but
Yeah.
35 is sort of a nice number to
Yeah.
manage, I expect too, as
Yeah.
far as.
Yeah,
just
and like I said, I'd like to have more students in Deep River come and certainly engage in that opportunity. And that's something I can work on with Meredith and Hannah and Raymond as Connor. Sorry, I think Connor as well. Yeah, Connor as well, but certainly with supporting, communication and such in that regard.
Anything else? Sorry.
I know I'm a little way late into this presentation, but I only wanted to share that I was actually a host family for a student 2019, 2020. So I was pregnant with COVID and trying to get a student back to Australia from Deep River.
Nice.
Yeah. So I did want to just kind of chime in on some of the issues with Deep River. A lot of the problem, like we're seeing with our co-op programs and everything, is travel.
Yeah.
So that has always been an issue. The other thing, and maybe this has changed since COVID, but a lot of the financial responsibility was actually left on the host parent.
Yeah.
So for example, in COVID, we needed to get a passport and we needed to kind of get all of these biometrics set and things. And that was placed very much on me to get her, 5 hours of transportation with bathrooms because of COVID. So it would be lovely to see kind of and I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That's my experience, because overall, I do think that it was an invaluable program, and not just for the student, but also for the students in Mackenzie. There was a lot of learning, a lot of travel now is happening. And I think Penelope, who she's never met, and I are going to get to go to Australia to go see her.
That's awesome.
Nursing college. So it was a great experience, and there were some issues and definitely some equity issues. I can't imagine anyone, a host family or a student, being able to participate unless they had quite a large sum of money. But I'd be more than happy.
I'd be happy to know that. I certainly can work with Sharon and look Because again, it isn't equitable with every experience. So certainly they were fortunate to be in your home, but there are a lot of I don't want to say amenities, but just costs that are needed to support. That's a good point.
Steve?
Well, I was gonna offer the same suggestion. We were a host family
Nice.
as well for a exchange student from France, and I can concur. I mean, it was certainly, we knew up front there would be costs associated with. And it was, I think our biggest challenge was not the same challenges that Jody had, but was, we were kind of the parent. And the student kind of wanted to do things that we weren't sure that they could go to parties and things like that. So we had some discussions with her family back in France and things like that. But it was worthwhile.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part is that my daughter, they didn't get along, the two, my daughter and the exchange, and so she never went to France. But it was really good from our end of it to have.
Yeah.
I think
So,
as well.
yeah, that's a good point.
It is not for every
Yeah.
family, but certainly valuable, I think, for those that can do it.
Absolutely. And there is a bit of a difference from students from Yes Canada coming and being hosted. It's not always reciprocal in terms of, you get to go to Japan and like with the France exchange, there is that reciprocity. We're hosting, they're hosting, and it's that partnership.
Good, thank you.
All right.
Also notice in there that we had to pay a tax, roughly of 33,000 to the ministry.
Yeah.
Right?
Kid or something.
Yeah. So is that like, just explain that a little more.
I do, Jen. Yes.
Friends help friends. Yes, the Ministry of Education did pick up on the fact that international education was a revenue source for many of the school boards and applied a $1,300 per student. They just take that right off the top. It was just something they implemented. There was no discussion. We don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Not very good, no. But a good presentation, I'm sure, like all these 35 students
Yeah.
enjoy themselves here. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, they loved it. So, or they are loving it. And some,
Especially the one from Australia, coming and seeing snow. For us, it's just like, well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Very good. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
I think we'll continue on with the open session and then we'll come back at the very end for the we'll close. Up next is the Indigenous education. I think Manol, it's your.
Yep, Tina.
That.
So they won't let me open it, just gives me. I had opened a minute ago, so yeah. Oh, don't let me go over it.
See if your assistant can fix it.
Where did it go? Okay, so. well, there's- Oh, you do that. That's right.
Tina will set up.
No. Oh, perfect. No need to do that. Very basic.
Goes right to the bottom.
Okay.
So while Tina and Amy are setting up, I'm just going to speak briefly to the work that is ongoing in our Indigenous education team. And I'm also going to reference very briefly a media release that came from the Chiefs of Ontario recently, where they actually looked at the last graduating cohort. So I know that this is not in the report that I provided, but I read the media report on the weekend. And based on the last graduating cohort, despite all the good work that's been ongoing for over practically 15 years now across the province, and I would say more intensely in the last 10 years, there's still gaps. There's still achievement gaps when it comes to our Indigenous students. So there's still more work to be done. What I would say, the nice thing that we're seeing, however, is certainly greater momentum, greater interest coming from teachers asking asking to have their own personal, not only knowledge, but also practice, trying to be supported. That has been reflected in us as a team to position ourselves to respond to greater teacher needs. So there's greater educator needs across our system. So we feel that we are in a position to respond to the growing demands. And that's been ongoing. We now have a team of 7 directly operating within our district under Tina's leadership. And we've established more partnerships with Indigenous community partners to support us in doing this work. And again, I just want us to keep in mind as we listen to Tina and Amy Charbonneau that there's still more work that needs to be done. We're not there yet. Okay, so I'll turn over to Tina and Amy to walk us through some of the work that we're going to be doing over the course of the current school year.
Yes, thank you. And before we begin that, we'll do a little update on some of our goals that we had for last year. So can we click on here, or do I have to? I can be your Vanna White. Booker though. Okay.
Ready?
Thanks.
Would you like to buy a vowel?
Okay, so one of our goals that we identified last year in our annual action plan for Indigenous education was to increase the presence and strengthen the relationships that we have with Indigenous community partners coming into our buildings to share some of their teachings with our staff and students. And so we just took a look at what we have done last year. So we had 117 opportunities to learn with community partners through the whole school year last year, 26 different partners. And this year, just in the first 3 months, we've had 97. And so only 13 partners, but that's a testament to the fact that those relationships are deeper and longer lasting. And so people are coming in and doing work over longer periods with us. And obviously, given the number of school days, that means we have many days where we have more than one person in our buildings working with a member of our team and with one of our classes. So as an example, some of those things I just wanted to share. Judy Ellis, who's one of our retired Indigenous graduation coaches, has been involved with Carrie Sarrazin from Pikwakanagan and Karina Arid from Pikwakanagan in leading the grade 9 art classes through a project of making baby moccasins that are being sent to the Pembroke Regional Hospital for all of the newborn babies. And I know that that's one of the social media postings that has had a lot of traffic. So we're definitely making a big impact in terms of engagement and awareness. We've had a lot of messages to the team and really positive feedback. Our #1 engagement post of the year so far.
Yeah.
And the students are loving it. So this is the basket that they filled up. We just went last week to drop that off and present it to the hospital. And now the second semester classes are already booking their dates to carry on the project. And then these are a couple of pictures that I took just last week at Herman Street Public School. We had Christina Ruddy and Heather Lett, Mike Fitzmaurice, and Lori Logan Bennett in supporting some of the learning math through the Indigenous lens. And so this is one of our branch outs from the work that had begun at Eganville District Public School years ago. So we're starting to spread that throughout the district. And so this is a sample of some of the beadwork that was happening in a grade 3 class. So one of our other goals last year that we identified was to increase the number of self-identified students, to build some understanding and awareness around what it means to self-identify. How are we actually going to use that information? We wanted to build that system-wide among our staff and our students, but also within the community and with our families. So we started last year in September with 416 students in the district, and right now we're sitting at 521. So we've gone from 4.2% of our population to 5.3% of our overall student population. We also wanted to establish that baseline for measuring our graduation data to measure our successful transitions to post-secondary. We had 40 grade 12 students in December of last year who our grad coaches were going out to work with, and we had 35 graduates in June. No, it wasn't 35 out of 40 because we did have new students in grade 12 who self-identified between December and June, but relatively close. And now we have permission from some of those graduates to do check-ins. So that'll be happening right as they're finishing their first term of post-secondary, because we're not just interested in getting them out the door. We really want to know how prepared did they feel? How are they enjoying their programs? What are the supports like there for Indigenous students? And so that we can use that information to better support the students who we're working with right now. So part of what we're focusing on this year as a team is that intentional collection of street data. So we have attendance data and graduation data and our EQAO scores, but we really want to focus on gathering the student voice and those other pieces of information, that qualitative data that really helps us take a look at the data sets that we have. Because if we just look at them in terms of the numbers, it seems like we're just going to perpetuate that biased narrative that we have around certain marginalized populations that are subsets within that broader group. So we need the additional information from the students and the families to actually create a more holistic picture of what's really going on with this data. If we present it just as, here's the achievement in terms of this group compared to this group, we're missing a big piece of the puzzle. So that's what we're looking at gathering this year. So for those of you who haven't read the book, the street data just refers to qualitative experiential data. It's asset-based. It builds on the tenets of culturally responsive education, helping educators look for what's right in the students, the schools, and the communities, instead of seeking out what's wrong. So instead of focusing on here's the deficits, here's the gaps, which tends to be how we speak about students and data sets, we're looking at what's actually working and how can we do more of that. So the ways that we want to do that is measuring our student agency. We are going to be creating a student voice group. We've tried to do this before, an Indigenous Student Voice Forum, but we have already identified most of our students. And Logan Wright, one of our Indigenous graduation coaches, along with Barb Scott Cole, one of our instructional coaches, will be kind of leading that up with some of our community partners. So we want to ask them, where do they see the opportunities for their voice to be heard as students within Renfrew County District School Board? Those focus groups will ask about belonging and connection. We know through that demographic data survey that we have that only 24% of secondary students reported that they do see their culture and identity reflected at school. So we want to know, what does that look like when we ask Indigenous students? How do they compare to that 24%? How can we do better? What's missing? And then our exit interviews with grade 12s, which we already spoke to, and just that permission to follow up with them. So this year we were really careful to make sure that we got that permission right away, because some of them got away last year and we didn't have that, or we didn't have an email address that wasn't a board email address. So we've been really careful this year.
Okay, so this is a piece that I'll speak to. So we have kind of a pilot project that's happening this year called Math Through the Indigenous Lens. We know that we've seen variations of this happening through the beating projects over the last couple of years. But this project started off last year with the numeracy coaches reaching out and wanting some feedback on how can we kind of collaborate and start to weave in more Indigenous ways of knowing into the way that we approach and teach math. So we kind of looked at a number of different things, and the thing we kept coming back to was the First People's Principles of Learning. So I think this is within the slides if you want to take a closer look, but there's simple things like learning involves patience and time. We know within a colonial structure, sometimes we are having to stop the authentic learning right when the students are getting right into it because it's gym time or it's time for recess. So we were looking at how do we carve out more sustained periods of time to authentically work on learning about math. We've talked about also learning, it ultimately supports the well-being of the self, the family, the community, the land, the spirits, and the ancestors. We're doing a lot of work around the self piece and supporting the well-being of others in the classroom. But one of the pieces that really stood out to the educators we're working with is how do we support the well-being of the land and develop relationship with it? So these have been some of the pieces we've been looking at. There's far more than just the two that I've mentioned, but we talked about how do we essentially align our math learning with these particular principles rather than falling back into what I tend to call the default practices. When I think about when I first became a teacher, there were certain things I knew I had to have up in my classroom because that's what my teachers had in their rooms. And it wasn't necessarily decisions made out of intention. It was just, this is what we've always done. So we're looking at how can we maybe use these principles of learning, aligning the way that we're teaching, the way that we're planning, to better serve the students, and to move away from some of those default practices. And a big part of that was also getting out on the land and learning from the land as well, and looking at land as teacher. So we sort of did some planning around what this might look like. And then on October 5th, we did our kickoff day. So we have 11 different educators across 5 different schools, ranging from Walter Zado, McNabb, Cobden, Whitney, and Valor. So we brought all the educators out on the land and we kind of workshopped with them. What might this learning look like with your students? We started the day at Boyd Provincial Park around a bonfire. We had the opportunity to smudge and learn about some of the protocol around smudging. We had the opportunity to have an Indigenous chef named Jamie come in and did all the cuisine for us for that day. We have in this picture here, we actually got to go out and harvest sweet fern and brought it back to have a large pot of tea that was brewing. But in that process, we learned too about that relationship with the land and how do we ethically harvest and what does reciprocity with the land look like? These were kind of the cornerstones to the learning we wanted to do with the students first, because if we didn't have that relationship, we knew any of the math learning once we got to that would just fall apart if we can't actually be in good relationship with the land and learn on it. So that was sort of the first starting point to our work. And then after that, we started getting out to the schools. So we initially started with one day just with the educators in their own school community, and we got to explore what place-based learning would look like. Each school has such a unique places to learn. McNabb, for example, doesn't have sort of the traditional forest area that, say, Walter Zado has to explore. So we were trying to think, what would learning there look like? And then interestingly, I don't have a picture of McNabb here. Oh, no, I do. It's over here. We ended up going to their hockey, the outdoor skating rink, and we thought, what could we find over here? Probably not a lot, lots of weeds growing. But we ended up finding a massive amount of wild raspberry and mullein, all kinds of medicines. We were doing this work in partnership with Joanne Haskin. So she said she could literally live in the hockey arena and survive. So it was really neat, that learning that came out. And so we then went back and planned a day with each of the classes. And it was really neat to see how much of those First Peoples principles of learning were naturally just coming out on the land. So this picture here, we had the student originally was doing a perimeter walk to understand where they were allowed to go within the forest near Valor. And as we were walking along, I looked down and I saw this little tiny plant and I recognized that it was winter mint, just because Joanne had pointed it out in other locations. And I was so excited and I really wanted just to tell this little child, this is what it is and this is what you can do with it. But one of the principles of learning is understanding the role that Indigenous knowledge plays in our learning. And so this was a beautiful opportunity to remind the student that Joanne possesses a great deal of knowledge around plants. Why don't you invite her over? So Joanne ended up coming and they talked a little bit about the importance of not eating things that you don't know what they are. And I guess apparently there's another plant that looks just like winter mint, but it's poisonous. But she did end up pulling out the tobacco that we offered her in the beginning, and she was able to show the students how you would use some of that tobacco to place down at the plant, and you talk to the plant and you ask whether it's willing to give itself up for the learning that's going to take place. So for the students to see that exchange of the tobacco wasn't meaningless, that there is importance to that protocol, and to understand that ethical harvesting piece. We have another student over here who found some milkweed along their walk on the trail in Whitney, and was really excited to bring the milkweed back to the classroom so that they could actually plant the seeds and then attract monarch butterflies in the spring. Joanne's mother, Margaret, was there that day and was able to talk about that importance of harvesting ethically and to place that tobacco down. But we also know culturally that tobacco might not be available to some students or might not be a part of the way that they interact with the land. So the student actually ended up going and picking up a whole bunch of garbage along the pathway as well as that way of making sure she wasn't taking more from the land than what she was giving back. So we've really seen the students embracing that idea of developing a relationship with the land. And I just point out this last one here in the Grove in Arnprior. There is this massive tree. It's probably about 50 feet long, and it's become the place that the students there go to. They're drawn to it. And the number of things that are growing on this tree, there's all kinds of fungus. There's interesting patterns in the wood. We've got spider webs, which have led to questions around what do spiders do in the winter? Do they hibernate? If so, what do they do to prepare? So there's been some really great questions. So we're hoping as the next steps of this project, the students start to develop inquiries around something in particular that they're interested in. And we know that math is going to be found in that. So if we're looking at trees and what do we use them for, it could get into a whole thing around drum making. We could be looking at migration patterns of animals and how we hunt and harvest the hides, and how do we do that in a respectful, kind way. So we know the math's going to come into that. And we have had a second day out on the land with all the educators, and they're sharing their slide decks. So we have pedagogical documentation that's coming from the educators involved, from our community partners, and then the math coaches and myself. So it's really neat to see how these inquiries are evolving. And going forward, we have a commitment to meeting with each class every 2 weeks to keep the reflection and the learning going moving forward. So it's an exciting project. It's one we walked into having no idea where it was going to go, but I think sometimes that messy learning and being experiential is the best learning out there. So
Absolutely. And I love that the students are already thinking ahead to their community garden that they'll be planning in the spring at Whitney, right? Like, how do we get the butterflies and the bees? And they're already thinking about that stuff. And when Amy shares these pictures with me, it's so heartwarming because many First Nations regard the land as the first teacher. That's the first teacher. We also refer to the land as our mother. So it makes sense that Mother Earth is the first teacher. Our mothers are our first teachers. And all of these pictures are the students out on the land learning. So just love it.
Too. Actually, one thing I didn't mention was when we first got all the educators together, we talked about what was your experience like when you were in school learning math. There was a range of like, this was traumatizing to I got it and I did really well, but it's because I could remember algorithms. I didn't understand what I was doing. So a big impetus for this work too is how can we make authentic opportunities to learn about math, opportunities that students will remember as they go into adulthood, and they'll continue to use what they learned. And we're excited too, as the project continues to go, we have different community partners that hold different knowledge. We have an arborist that we can tap into and utilize, but all Indigenous partners, because we believe we really can't do this work without that partnership. So.
Okay, so thinking of our supports for students, we want to enhance those capabilities to offer culturally responsive and relevant support for mental health and well-being. That's part of our plan for this year. So that Indigenous Student Forum will be one of the ways that we assess their needs and try to be responsive to those needs. We now have 6 dedicated spaces out of our 7 high schools compared to only 1 or 2 at this time last year. So the grad coaches have that dedicated space where they can go and they can work with students, and the students are busy planning and thinking about how they want to decorate and fill those spaces so that they truly see themselves reflected in those spaces. We are very close to having a memorandum of understanding with Pikwakanagan Mental Health so that they can provide services in school to students who are members of Pikwakanagan. Similarly, we wanted to offer something for students who are not members of Pikwakanagan, but who are Indigenous. So we have a similar agreement with Nojimo Health, which provides online, virtual, and telephone support for students and their families. And it's all Indigenous practitioners at Nojimo Health. They can go on and select the person they want to work with. And we're just at the very beginning of trying to create a memorandum of understanding as well with Mashkwezi Manado Foundation here in Pembroke, which is a locally based organization where we could get that face-to-face cultural support. And Joanne Haskin is one of the board members there. Our transitions to secondary school throughout the summer, our graduation coaches engage with the students. They provide some learning opportunities. They do cultural teachings. They've done skilled trades workshops with them. We put together welcome packages for as they transition to grade 9 with t-shirts and some school supplies and water bottles and chargers for their laptops that they would be getting. Just things to help them feel really excited about starting off at their new school. And again, those transitions from secondary. Part of that will be our Indigenous Career Fair coming up in the spring this year. So we're actually going to be inviting younger students. So looking at possibly grades 8 to 11, so that we'll have multiple opportunities, not just the post-secondary institutions, but employers, recruiters from those employers who are specifically looking for Indigenous employees. And then those representatives from the schools to speak to what are the services and opportunities and scholarships and programs that we have in place for Indigenous students. So we'll have that in May. In terms of our support for educators, Ronald spoke earlier about the expansion of our Indigenous education team. We did just recently add 2 instructional coaches K to 12 so that Amy is not the only one trying to go across the district to support the teachers. That was really in response to requests that we had from the system saying we want to do the work and they want to build capacity, but we couldn't get to the requests as quickly as they were coming through. A big part of that was last year, all of the focus and the collaboration that we did with the curriculum teams to offer professional development for all of those grade 9 teacher groups that you see listed there, as well as the grade 10 civics and the ECE group. So of course, when you do that workshop and you talk about here's all the possibilities for what you could be doing to embed Indigenous ways of knowing into your curriculum, then all of a sudden the requests are coming in. Well, how can you come and help me? And we were at the point where we were having to book 2 months out, and that's not sustainable. So luckily IAC was in support. They had been in support for a while of the expansion of that team. So now we have those 3 instructional coaches, and we're really excited about how much more we'll be able to do with more feet on the ground. We've launched the Indigenous Education Google site. It's still awaiting some review and collaboration with the comms team so that we can be AODA compliant, but it has been launched internally so that teachers can access resources and be aware of upcoming dates. We have slide decks in there. The other part that's really helpful on that site for the teachers is the forms that they can fill out. If they're looking to work with one of the instructional coaches, they can request co-planning. If they want to have a community guest come in, they can fill that in. If they're looking for just resources for a specific subject or topic or curriculum strand, then they can ask us about that. As well, if they're looking for subsidies to offset the cost of excursions for some of the classes. And it's really prescriptive. We ask a lot of questions. We front load it so that it just minimizes the back and forth communication. We know exactly what they're looking for. And it puts some accountability on them to really do the thinking about where are the connections that they see already to the curriculum. So it's not just a blanket request. I'd like to do something. Can you come in? Right? We really want them to be thinking intentionally about those requests. What's brilliant about that is we're going to be able to track where are we spending our time and our resources, and are we being equitable across the district? So we can put it all on our spreadsheet and see where have we been and where haven't we been. So that's going to be helpful. We're continuing to fund professional development. We were just at the Indigenous Education Provincial Gathering in Toronto. We sent an educator as well to the national gathering for Indigenous education in Montreal. We have teachers who are booked to go to Reading for the Love of It in the spring, and already getting requests for the Indigenous Relationships and Reciprocity Mathematics Conference in Aurelia that will happen in the spring. So we're continuing to support that. That's one of the forms that the educators can fill out, and it's not limited just to conferences or AQ courses, although we do support those. If they hear of a webinar or a podcast or a workshop that's being offered locally that they want to attend and they want us to help offset the cost, we can do that and they can request it. We also have right now about 15 educational assistants who are funded through Jordan's Principle. So we're planning some professional development for those EC or EAs, just around culturally responsive approaches and some cultural sensitivity training for working with the First Nation students, as well as continuing to build capacity with our grade 9 art teachers. We've seen a little bit of shifting, new people in the role, a lot of people taking mat leave. So we have some work to do there just to make sure that our new teachers are feeling supported and that they're not as worried about appropriation. We have the instructional coaches who can help with that. And as well, supporting with our curriculum team, the elementary social studies and all of those revisions. So we have a lot of work coming up. Just to give you an overview then of where we stand in terms of the staff that are being supported through the Indigenous Education Department, with the exception of those 15 EAs and now 1 special education resource teacher that are funded through Jordan's Principles. We have our team of 7 centrally, so our 3 grad coaches, 3 instructional coaches, and myself. We also fund a 50% SO role and a 50% vice principal at Eganville. And we have a pilot program right now for a literacy intervention at one of our schools. And then these positions over here that are referred to as the shared positions are cost shared with the Algonquin-Zopiquaquan First Nation. So we have 2 Indigenous education liaisons, 1 at Eganville, 1 at Opeongo. We have our language teacher and the assistant for that Algonquin language program at Eganville, and then a tutor for secondary students coming out of Opeongo.
So this is another project that we have on the go right now that will likely take us right till the end of the school year. So last year, Emily Stovall, who works at the Armfire Museum, reached out trying to find ways that we could support each other's work. And we talked about, again, lots of different things, but the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People was one piece that came up as it's something I think that there's still a lot of learning that needs to happen around it. And so we talked about doing some kind of exhibit with the museum, but we wanted to include student voice and give students an opportunity to do some learning around it as well. So originally we looked at just having the students start, researching UNDRIP and maybe doing some sort of display, but we realized that there was probably some limitations to them starting at that point if they didn't understand more so the history of colonization and why Indigenous rights are so significant and what are some of the barriers that continue to stand in the way of those rights being met. So we kind of took a step back a little bit, and what we're currently working on is we talked about what exactly a community is and how do communities survive and thrive. So the students came up with a list of various things, including things like food, water, shelter, but they also looked at education as being one of those components that helps an individual to thrive. And they ended up signing up each for 2 things that they were going to physically build to make a model community. So we've got some of the students ended up making, I think this fellow here was actually making a water tower. And then we've got over here, there was a pet store. So we all know our pets help us to thrive, especially when we're having a rough day. So they've actually since completed all of their buildings, and it looks a little something like this. So we've had a lot of refrigerator boxes, and it's Emily at the museum's been amazing. She's had every single thing that we could possibly need to dream up this community. So we're now at the process. We named the community today. So we had a vote on what we thought we should name it. So the students had all kinds of things from like, this is awesome town to we ended up, our final name was Kizik, which means sun. So it's Sun Valley. And we wanted to make sure we were honoring the territory that we're on by using an Algonquin name. We also then today we're talking about what are the values and beliefs that are important to our community. So I actually very much staged. I had a lot of garbage in my pocket and I threw it onto their community and they were not happy with me. But it led to a discussion around, why we don't litter and how also the fact that they recognize they worked really hard on this and I was not being respectful of their property or the things that they worked on. So they went off into groups and we're developing a list of all the things that they think are going to be important for their community. And this sort of essentially helps to affirm that this is a community that's important to them, that they've had input into. We will give them little objects that they will physically move in to represent themselves in the community. But the next step is that there will be a phone call coming from a neighboring community who is without water and electricity, and they're going to ask if they can come in and share the community space with them. So the students get to vote on that. They did recognize today that we have no police station, despite the fact that we have a prison. There's no fire services at all either. So the neighboring community will bring in some things we don't currently have. And then there's a conversation that will take place around how do 2 communities or 2 groups of people come together and share space and respect, each other and their culture and their traditions. So that gives us an opportunity to actually look at the Two-Row Wampum Belt, which essentially outlines the relationship that we would see between the Europeans and Indigenous people in the beginning, or at least what we wanted that relationship to look like. And those two rows run parallel to each other, so they don't intersect. So it's that idea that we can coexist together, but we're not going to hinder or try to interfere with each other's cultures and traditions. And then there's white rows that separate the two, which represent peace, friendship, and respect. So we'll talk a bit about that, and they have the opportunity to actually create their own treaty. But then the next day they come in, there's going to be an oil rig placed in the middle of their community, and the neighboring community is then going to take over and start extracting that oil and displace them. So as they go through this process, they are going to hopefully understand how colonization has taken place in Canada. In the end, they do have the opportunity to come back to their community, but it comes at a price. So they'd have to give up their cultural identity, but then they will be allowed to have access to all the things they need to survive. Or there is a swamp area that we deliberately chose not to build on because of the fact that they recognize that it would not be habitable. And so they have to decide whether they would stay there and keep their cultural identity, but struggle to meet their own basic needs. And so we really wanted them to understand why the current situation we're in now is not black and white. It's not that easy. There's a lot of factors at play. So once that project is finished, we'll have an opportunity to make some connections between what happened in our own simulation to what's actually happened in our history on this land through the Kairos blanket exercise. And once we've gone through that, the students hopefully will understand the significance of Indigenous rights and why they are important and why everyone sharing the land should be invested in them. And that's when we'll start looking into UNDRIP. And our hope is to create a pop-up exhibit. So it'll be available for people in the community in Arnprior to come and see. But then it'll also be a traveling exhibit that can actually go from school to school. So it's going to take a while to do this, but we're hoping too that the students remain involved even if it extends into next school year, and that they have an opportunity to come and represent the project as it travels. So that's just another little thing we have on the go right now.
Learning lots about curating and exhibits and all.
Yes, I'm learning tons every time I go in there.
So we're happy to take any questions if you have any about just some snippets of the work. There's 25 pages worth of a very summary. That was just kind of a quick highlights.
Very good, very interesting. So when it's a traveling, so how do you progress your story then if it's traveling? Because you had said that you're going to bring an oil rig into the middle. How would you do that if it's a traveling?
Oh, it'll actually be, so it'll be an exhibit that they create on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And so what we're hoping in that is that they'll have more of a focus on whether it's how it's being implemented right now. Because from my understanding, it has been passed federally, but it's up to each province to decide how they're going to implement it. And right now, I believe there's only one province, I think it's BC is the only one that's actually implemented.
Has movement.
Yes. So what we want them to do is actually pick an article from UNDRIP, so one of the rights of Indigenous people, and research it. And our goal is to actually amplify Indigenous voices and Indigenous people who are already leading that work, rather than us coming in and making suggestions on what should be done, because we know that Indigenous people are resilient and there's a lot of work that's already being done, and we want to highlight that. So that exhibit itself, once we figure out what that's going to look like, that will be the piece that'll actually travel from school to school. Yes, but I'm hoping we can have some photos of this work too, and documenting. We've got a slide deck that's documenting each stage of this work as well. And I've done this twice now, and the first two times we've done it, it was with kindergarten classes. So it's really interesting to see how they're going to respond. This is a grade 5-6 class that we're working with.
I love that young ones can, they're wrapping their heads around big concepts at kinder. They understand community relations and governance and all of that stuff.
Any questions?
Susan, go first.
Okay, thanks for that. Really appreciate the data side of this, because I know when I was looking through your action plan, I was looking for some measurements as well too. So how do we know we're making a difference? And so I guess one thing that I might recommend down the road is maybe including some of those measures in your plan as well, so that you have them firmly there, so you know how to compare them. But you've certainly done some work on that through the data collection you've done. it's challenging, right? To figure out the so what part. I mean, you've done some really great work, but the so what difference has it made? You know, what kind of learning have we had? What's the long-term implication? Those are hard things to measure. I recognize that as well. But where we can, we need to get a handle on that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And for right now, I'd say the last couple of years with the introduction of the grad coaches, our focus has been on supporting well-being and sense of belonging in schools because we recognize that that's the foundation of achievement. So we're seeing a lot of movement in terms of the number of students who are actually coming out and accessing those spaces. And the grad coaches are keeping some really great data in terms of how many kids are showing up each day and what are the exact type of needs. So are they coming for guidance and navigation toward other support services in the school? Are they coming for academic support? Are they coming for food security? Are they coming because they want some cultural teaching? So we'll have all of that data as well to look at. And those forms are going to be so helpful in helping us take a look at that overview of what's going on, where in the district, and where's the capacity and where are the needs.
I have just a short follow-up,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. So I'm assuming, or maybe you can talk to me a little bit about what the ministry requires as far as your outcomes and measures, because I'm sure they're looking for that data as well, because they're funding this, right? So they really want to know. Can you talk a little bit about
So
that?
self-identification is one thing that they want us to measure, and then the closing of the gaps in achievement. So they're looking at specifically those gaps that we do see in EQAO results and our graduation rates. So we as a district are doing really well in terms of our graduation rates when you compare provincially. And so if you go back to that slide in the speaker notes, I put a link to what some of that data looks like from Stats Canada, if you're comparing provincially and federally. So we're doing quite well in terms of our graduation rates.
So those are the only two things they're measuring at this point, pretty much?
For hard numbers, yeah, those are the number pieces that the ministry is looking at.
I know it's difficult to measure some of these other
Yeah,
other pieces because it may be a very long-term impact that, you know, will happen long after they leave school even. So it's
exactly.
challenging.
And if you look back at that medicine wheel that we have on a couple of those slides, those are the 4 quadrant areas. So it's the supporting educators, supporting students, the use of data to support students, and then the engagement and awareness, which is why we wanted to really take a look at how many community partners are we working with? Are we building relationships? How are we modeling that reciprocity? Because those are things that they want us to focus on as well.
So you link those to that. I guess I'm thinking you could probably then link them to your plan, perhaps a little bit clearer as well. So
Absolutely,
just thought.
sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Mike and then Christina.
Yeah, just briefly a comment. As you know, Gene, I've always been interested in Indigenous a while. And one of your staff members who I've known for years, Trevor Pierce, invited me in to his work area at Fellows. And about 8 weeks ago, I had to go in there for something else. And I called Trevor up. I said, do you mind if I drop in? Oh, by all means. And I just dropped in. By that, at that particular day, there was an OPP liaison officer that was always there. It was already there. And I just, when you were doing your presentation, you have to experience the atmosphere. And the closest words I can put in, when I walked in, I looked at it as a very peaceful, reflective place with a very supportive atmosphere and a place that had a sense of trust. And I was there for about an hour and a half. And, you know, I walked out of there feeling good in the fence. You know, I really went, you know what? I mean, I can't speak for other areas and other work that's being done, but the time I was there, it was very obvious to me, especially working at Fellows High School for the many years I did, that Trevor is exceptional what he does. And I'm sure some of the other staff are also the same, but I walked out of there feeling, you know what, I can understand why there's a sense of, I think that the Indigenous peoples that live in the area, I think they're feeling more comfortable to express the fact of their history and sort of a coming out of their, you know, they're in the fact that they were here first, they were in the valley. And I just felt really, really good when I left there, because I left from there to go do my volunteer work, and thank Trevor again. And the kids were a little curious because Trevor sort of introduced me and said his little blurb about us and myself and he and his history. And I just said, I've known him since he was your age. Really? And then I had to take off. I said, can't talk to you right now. Sort of left them hanging when I did my other volunteer work. So if the other areas that you have your staff are anything even close to what I experienced, those are the words I use to describe it. So pass that on to Trevor.
Will, for sure. Thank you.
I was just gonna say too, I know, we had the opportunity, we had 4 administrators join us on, it was last Tuesday that we were out on the land again. And, how much they just felt like calm, just that sense of wellness stepped back in and, wanting others to be able to have that experience. And I had meant to say this earlier, but if anyone ever wants an opportunity to come out, I know everyone's busy, but we extend that invite to any of the work that we're doing through these projects. So if you're interested in coming out, please send me an email and we could connect with a date, or if there's a certain school or location you are interested in coming to, we certainly welcome others to come and join and get to experience the learning with us for sure.
Thank you. Christina?
I just wanted to congratulate Tina and Ronald and everybody, because it was just pre-pandemic that Tina and I were chasing each other all over Renfrew County, or dividing and conquering to try and get everywhere and be everything to everybody. Me as a community partner, and her, of course, on behalf of the board. And it's like night and day. And those were fun times, but I'm glad where we're
tired.
So congratulations, Tina.
Thank you. Miigwech.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you for an awesome presentation.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And on deck, we'll have Jenny getting ready for
I'm ready.
presentation. Ready.
I have nothing special to say.
Last slide.
Oh,
Be on the land with us.
Santa Claus happened today. I thought it was a little. For sure. Yeah. Well, it was very. You gotta have to experience it.
Jenny, you're gonna talk about the school year calendar
Yes, I am.
change.
I am, yeah, just to update you on the situation. So, as you can see in the report, a bit of history here, there is in our district a total solar eclipse, which will occur on April the 8th, 2024. And the timing of it is really interesting and tricky for us, as it begins at 2:10 in the afternoon and ends at 4:33. So that's right around the time of people outside, getting children onto buses, buses traveling home, bus drivers being responsible for having all the little people on the bus who we know that due to the possibility of damage to the eyes, we need to stop people from looking into the sun at that time, especially during the peak of the event. So that being said, we've been considering how to approach this, because we do know that there is a risk factor there. There's a risk factor for the students. If they're outside, have the opportunity to be able to look up, and we need to be able to think about how we're going to mitigate that risk. So moving on to think about where we are now. We did discuss at our calendar meeting as well, and the Transportation Consortium does have serious concerns around the timing of this, concerns for the bus drivers and for the students, and really wanted to think about how we can move forward. So we did contact the Ministry of Education, but they're not providing any direction to school boards at this time as to how we go about navigating this. They have just essentially told us that if we do make any sort of change to our calendar to respect this event, that we update them and update families. And so thinking about how to handle this situation, there were considerations for, can we adjust the school day? That's very difficult because of just the nature of our staffing, and people may have different employment. It's difficult for families having to navigate a different day. So then Renfrew County Catholic District School Board actually approached us and said that they were thinking about what to do here. And they had proposed the idea of changing the scheduled PA day, which was scheduled for April the 26th, to the same day as the eclipse. So that would mean that rather than, if we considered adjusting a school day, we'd have 2 disrupted sort of days in the month of April. But if we do this, then families are navigating just the one day, which is not an addition of an additional PA day. It's just a moving of the PA day from April 26th to April 8th to align with the eclipse.
And the thinking there is also just thinking about there's more potential, more control for the student safety when they are at home during that time, and we know that people are looking out for them. So they have approached us with this, and they did actually approve at their board meeting yesterday a change to their PA day. And we've considered this, and we always try to align our PA days because for lots of reasons, but one of the biggest ones is also financial, because if we don't do so, then we have to provide additional transportation costs. And so it would cost us, if we didn't have the same plan, it would be somewhere in the realm of $45,000-ish that it would cost us to have a different day. So right now, and just thinking about this and thinking about the timing and wanting to keep everybody's best interests at heart, we would propose changing our April 26th PA day to April the 8th to align. We would communicate safety resources to families, inform them of the change as quickly as possible. We have had discussions around should we get that approval today and we would feel comfortable moving forward with that change, then we would start communicating to our system right away, so that we're giving families as much advance notice as possible to make any changes, as well as confirming the change with any community partners like our daycare providers, et cetera, who need to be also aware, who build their plans around us, essentially. So that would be our proposal, is that we would move forward to be able to communicate that change as quickly as we could. We will have to navigate through our Federation partners and calendar committee in an ongoing way any concerns around staff for the day, but we're just in the beginning of working through that, but that would be a next step as well.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Yes,
I just wanted to say I said it on that meeting, and Jenny put it very well. And the quote that I can remember is one of the staff members at the meeting, one of the people at the meeting said, "Can you imagine telling a bunch of kindergartens and grade ones not to look up? What they do, that's what they do." So, I mean, I think it's the most logical / conservative thing to do. From my point of view as a trustee, I think it's a prudent move. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? So there's a recommendation. I'll read that out. That the Renfrew County District School Board approve an amendment to the school year calendar for 2023-24 school year in order to change the professional activity PA day schedule for April 26th, 2024 to April 8th, 2024. I move adoption of this recommendation. Thank you, Mike, seconded. All in favor? Thank you. That's passed. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
And then on to the next item we have, it's the board policy 19, fraud management. Dave Kaiser, because you're an expert in fraud, apparently.
A comeback, Dave?
He's pausing.
He's thinking of a comeback.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just a housekeeping thing, and I talked to Meredith about this before she went off to Japan, of all places. That there was an error on Cosbo, or what it should have been Cosby. Is that correct? Do I remember that correctly? Which, because we just had it wrong in the recommendation. It has nothing to do with the recommendation or anything within it. It's just the reference.
Could I just ask a question? So I think the idea was to actually remove that section to kind of simplify. Maybe Director Kelly could comment on it.
Yeah, it was just to change that recommendation. In other words, take the Cosmo out.
Just take it out so that we're not referencing anything.
Correct. And I thought we had it as approved. Shouldn't we have it just as presented?
Yes, it's presented.
Yeah, as presented. It doesn't need that extra detail anyway. It's just a little technical error.
Yeah. So the recommendation is just a simple one, that the Renfrew County District School Board of Trustees adopt policy 19, fraud management, as presented. And that was as presented in the previous committee meeting.
So you're bringing forward that recommendation?
Yes.
All right, so there's the motion on the floor by Dave, the seconder. Thanks, Susan. All in favor? Thank you. That's passed. The next item is the trustee vacancy. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you. And I don't think this will take too long, but as you well know, we do have a vacancy around our trustee table, unfortunately. And there are rules around what our next steps must be. So according to the Good Governance Guide, a school board has 90 days to fill the vacancy by appointment or by a by-election. So we do have a couple of choices. So I just wanted to run by what the choices were for everyone, and then we do need to decide how we want to proceed. So around an appointment, the legislation doesn't set out any criteria around appointment. It's up to the board to determine how they want to appoint. So a couple of approaches would be appointing the candidate who came in second in the last election. However, you may recall that Trustee Morris was acclaimed, so there was no one running second. Inviting interested persons to apply for the position, and then we would interview and appoint, or offering the appointment to a member of the community who you know would be a good trustee and is interested. So those are a couple of ways of the appointment piece. The by-election piece, you can by resolution require a vacancy be filled in a by-election, and this would be held in accordance with the Municipal Elections Act, of course. So once the school board decides to hold the election, the municipal clerk takes over and conducts the election. The board, we don't decide when the nomination day or voting day is. The municipal clerk decides the dates and they set the timelines. Our board would bear the cost, however, of the by-election, even though during a regular election, the municipality bears that cost. I did reach out to the Petawawa staff at the municipal office, Colin Howard, and asked for a bit of an estimation of what the cost would be if we went with a by-election. And his estimate would be in the range of $30,000 to run a by-election for this position, based on the cost of the last election. So it's not inexpensive to run a by-election. So I would suggest a motion that the Renfrew County District School Board invite interested persons to apply and be interviewed for the position of trustee representing the municipality of Petawawa. Just to be clear, the person does not need to live in Petawawa either. We would advertise in the entire district because there is no rule about living in the area when you do this. So we would advertise across the district, look for people who are interested, and then interview and select. So I would like to put that motion on the board, or on the table rather, that we would invite interest, interview, and then.
So the motion on the table, so I just need a seconder so we can discuss it. Thank you, Mike. So just for clarification, they just have to be within, they have to live within Renfrew County.
That's correct.
Right. So discussion. Let's see.
Just, and I did talk to Susan about this before, there is two precedent examples with this board since I've been on it since 2000 of similar situation. And in both cases, we opened it up for interviews, interested candidates, and then made a selection from that group. So I feel like that's why I would support the motion.
Julie?
I would support the motion as well. I think by-election, in addition to being quite expensive, if former trustee Morris was acclaimed, it very well might be a waste of money to, and I think voter turnout for these types of things in this area will be quite low. So I think this makes the most sense, but still allows a lot of public transparency. So particularly if we're spending some time and money advertising to everyone.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything to say?
Maybe I would just add one quick thing, if I may, just around the timing. I think the intention would be we would start advertising in early January. I don't think there's much point in trying to advertise in December. Everybody's pretty geared for other things at that time of year. So if we advertised in early January maybe for 2 weeks, we might be able to interview by the end of the month, the end of January, which would keep us within the 90-day. I don't expect if we went beyond the 90 days a little bit, we would get into too much trouble, but we do need to recognize that it should be filled within a 90-day time frame.
Yeah, so we're working on it. We're in process.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion on that? None? Let us sign of hands in favor of the motion. Thank you, and that's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that legwork. All right, so we're gonna go back into closed, just to deal with financial information external auditor. So I need a motion to move into closed. I'll do that, thanks. Oh, Kim did that. Thank you. Seconder. Thanks, Susan. All in favor? Thank